You know, back when I was 19 years old, I was given the best piece of advice that I've ever received. I was told, Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops. Let's talk about that. Welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Today I'm joined by Angie Manson. From a low-income housing to CEO of Elevate Addiction Services, Angie Manson started using drugs and alcohol at the tender age of 11 years old. Growing up in the 24-hour town of Reno, Nevada, she had easy access to substances, which led her down the road of addiction. An intervention by her family on her 16th birthday landed her in jail again, followed by her first experience in a treatment center, which didn't help Angie get clean and sober at that time. After several more brushes with the law and facing the prospect of a 10-year jail sentence, a compassionate judge sentenced Angie to treatment instead. A couple of months in, she started working and giving back. Angie has found her true passion and purpose, which is to help others who are struggling with addiction, and she is grateful to be put on the path to live her true calling. As the CEO of Elevate Addiction Services, the only drug rehab in the country to have a CrossFit gym, Angie is passionate about health and fitness. She is the host of the Going Rogue podcast and a recent recipient of the Forbes Riley Outstanding Humanitarian Award. With Angie's leadership, Elevate was nominated for and won the Excellence in Treatment Gold Award from Conquer Addiction. Angie has been featured in multiple articles such as LA Weekly, Recovery Today, CrossFit, and many more. She has 30 years in recovery and was a contributor to the international #1 bestseller, One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success, and The Greatest Lessons I Learned from Being an Entrepreneur, Volume 3. Angie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Great to have you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thanks for having me on the show. Really excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, we had such a great discussion when I was on your show, and I could not pass up the opportunity to ask you if you wanted to be on my show, and I really appreciate you coming on. Reading your bio, I just love the, all of the things that you're doing and how you're contributing and giving back. And I truly believe that, after a while in sobriety, that's our calling, right? Like that's what we do. And I'm passionate about that in my life. And I know you're passionate about that in yours.
Yeah. It's funny. I was listening to the bio. I'm like, geez, that kind of sums everything up. I don't even know what I need to add here. However, the beginning of it, that was 30 years ago, which is crazy to me now to think about that, how much I've grown and changed in that 30 years. And then really just feeling the gratitude, for being put on that path, because, it's interesting in this field, a lot of people will say, oh, gee, I'm sorry, that you had to go through that or endure that or whatever it is. And it's like, no, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because that's what put me on my path to where I am today. Had I not overcome addiction or been confronted with 10 years in prison or all the things that I went through, I wouldn't be in this amazing position today to be able to not only help other people who are like me, but to employ tons of people who were like me. That is the majority of my staff are people who've overcome addiction themselves. And it's interesting because you and I were talking about this earlier about, well, do former addicts make good employees? And the very short answer is absolutely. Like if you see how much effort goes into being and staying an addict, that's a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of work ethic and a lot of hustle. There's a lot that goes into it. However, when we can help people overcome their addiction and they can now utilize those, what used to be, what kept their addiction alive, but now they can transfer it to helping people, helping do all the things to assist others who are once like them. There's no greater gift than we could give the world. And I got to say, clients respond to it. They're like, wait a minute, you didn't get your education from, I mean, some of us have through college or schools or work. We got our education to be able to help them by having gone through it ourselves. And clients really resonate with that because they're like, you understand what you're telling me to do because you've done it yourself. Therefore, you kind of have clout and I'm going to listen to what you're saying.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. You hit on so many important things there, Angie. The gratitude piece, which I think is for me, and it sounds like for you, the foundation stone with which we build our lives, which is really cool. And the other thing that I think is incredibly important is being able to understand that because we went through what we went through, whatever that was, and it's different for everybody, and that's completely cool. Everybody's got a different story, but what we went through got us to where we are. And people say to me all the time, and I see the question asked, if you could change one thing about your life, what would it be? And and I did a lot of dumb stuff and whatever, and we all did, right?
Yeah. We didn't go to rehab because we were doing good things, or we didn't get sober because we were making smart choices.
Right, exactly. And my answer to that question is I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing because I don't know where I would have ended up. And my life now is 1,000 times better than I ever imagined it could be. And so if I alter one thing in that process, even if it's something that I did that I don't feel good about, it still could have changed the whole trajectory. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's something I love to go by. In fact, I got to have this banner made so I can put it in my gym, but it's the growth happens on, and I'm missing this now. Anyway, the growth comes when you're uncomfortable. Growth doesn't come when you're comfortable and cruising through life. It's those uncomfortable things where we have to, quote unquote, get through it, the adversity we have to overcome, the suffering we need to explore. But that's where the growth comes from. So if you never have uncomfortableness in your life, you don't have as much opportunity to experience the true potential of growth from it either.
100% agree. It's funny you say that because I'm, my wife and I, we work out and we exercise and we do all kinds of things. And I'm doing a thing right now. It's called hyperbolic stretching. And I'm trying to learn how to do the splits at almost 60 years old. But man, does it hurt. And man, is it uncomfortable. I mean, it's horrifying, but it's part of that. And you mentioned it earlier. It's part of that. We have a drive as, either we're driven in the wrong direction or we're driven in the right direction, us addicts, alcoholics, that sort of thing. And I love that you put that list together of things that are about sober or clean people. And as you were saying that list, I was thinking, there's craftiness and there's all sorts of different things that we do.
Problem solving, critical thinking, all kinds of things.
Yeah. You can either be doing it in one direction or the other direction. And, today we choose to do it in a direction that can help other people. But yeah, I think those things, and I've heard a lot of employers, and I've felt this way myself. Actually, one of my first real sales job when I was in my 20s, the guy, I tell everybody like, hey, here's what I came from. And they're like, oh yeah, you're in, man. You're sober for a while. Yeah, you're in. And people appreciate that, which I think is absolutely cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's changed so much because, back when I first got into this 30 years ago, there was such a stigma around, people in recovery or people that are addicts and struggling. Like they were like the plague, you thought the worst of them. They're the guys that are like in the gutters and needles sticking out of their arms. And it was a pretty bad kind of reputation. But fast forward 30 years with all the attention on mental health and realizing that people can overcome this. They don't have to be this person their whole life. It's like who they used to be. We're really fortunate to live in a time where I don't want to say it's like celebrated, but it is definitely not looked down on the way it used to, especially the more people like own it as a badge of like who I used to be, because and this is for very good reasons too. With HIPAA and everything, everything's very confidential, and we like that because it encourages people to get help. But I think the more people that speak out after they've gotten the help and they're winning in life, it shows people like, hey, that doesn't mean who they are, and we don't have to hold this old persona against them. We can really like move on and become not just like sober individuals white knuckling it through life. Like we can actually become kick-ass people in anything that we decide to do because of the stuff that we endured to get to where we were at.
Absolutely. And that so many of those things, as you mentioned earlier, Angie, are uncomfortable, by their very nature. And just when I first got sober, it was like, oh, feelings? What are you talking about? I got to feel my feelings. I have to do things that I'm scared to do, that taking risk thing. And for a long time now, it's been just a matter of course in my life. It's just, okay, if you want to do this, you're going to have to hurt a little. And that's completely okay with me now. And I think it's important for people to understand that, because early on, it's scary. Early on, sobriety can be scary, and recovery can be scary. And then it becomes just this thing where you're just like, man, let's go. This feels so good. And it feels so good to achieve and to connect with people and to have great relationships and to have a meaning in life. And those are all the things we get if we do the work.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And it is doing the work. Like, it's not like I had a problem, I overcame it, now life is great. It is like nonstop work. So for those of us that have been doing this for a long time, we start to master certain things or get really good at it, and it becomes comfortable. It's maybe not as much of a challenge. And so then I know for like myself, I have to constantly be coming up with new ways to challenge myself to keep that growth continuing. Like right now, for example, I started 75 hard again 2 weeks ago, which is awesome. That's 2 workouts a day, a gallon of water, reading, all this other stuff. But then I was like, you know what? I'm feeling like my body's not like responding like it normally does. Like, let's crank it up a little. And so I'm on day 3 of a fast right now, inside of 75 hard. Yeah, I haven't eaten in like 2.5 days. But again, it's just something that, keep challenging yourself. That became easy. Good. Now find another way to challenge yourself so we can keep sort of pushing the adversity. Because here's the other thing that I've learned is if you're not creating like adversity for you to overcome in your life yourself, life will create adversity for you one way or the other. So personally, I like free will. And so I'd rather impose my own adversity than waiting for life to do that so I can get some learnings or lessons or growth there. So I like to constantly find ways to push myself to keep all the learning, growing, and the joy of life to continue.
Yeah, it's amazing the things we can find in life that challenge us that initially we may not want to do. If you talk to anybody who's known me for any period of time, they'd be like, wait, Daryl, what? Daryl's doing a podcast. What are you talking about? And that was never something that I ever considered doing. But after I wrote my books, I was like, you know what? I think, and being a guest on podcasts, I was like, why don't I just do that? And it's not a comfortable thing for me.
No.
There's always this little pit in my stomach before I have a podcast. I'm like, man, I hope I don't screw this up. And, like all that sort of stuff happens, which again is completely cool and completely normal. And the difference between people who continue and the people who don't is you just move through the discomfort. You just allow the discomfort to be there, and then you just keep going. And then the discomfort goes away. Like I'm not uncomfortable right now doing this podcast with you at all. I'm actually having a great time. And that little bit of discomfort to just walk through that isn't a big deal.
No. And you feel so good afterwards. When I've been doing a lot on learning about neuroscience and biohacking and all the things. And in reality, and this is measured by scientists and all these other people, is we actually get a bigger boost from our hormones when we're doing something we really don't want to do. We really not feeling it, got nerves about it, makes me nervous. I don't understand. I don't like it, makes me pain, whatever it is. But if we do it anyway, we feel even better than when we do stuff that, I got to brush my teeth. Okay. I'm not really getting much out of that. It's just, it is what it is. But when we push ourselves to do something that we don't want to do and we do it, we feel even better. So again, all the more reason to continue to giving ourselves to push and grow, to feel good about ourselves. And that's like the key to sobriety, is like, it's not becoming stagnant and like, this is who I am the rest of my life. It's like, okay, cool. Let's reinvent who that is into the next version or iteration of yourself for that next thing, which for, let's be honest, a lot of addicts and alcoholics, they haven't even really, a lot of them, especially the ones younger, don't even know what that looks like. They went straight from being in their parents' house and using and drinking to adulthood as an addict. And it's almost like having to learn who you are and go down that journey of self-discovery.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was a big thing for me, and getting sober at a young age. And I was, I had no idea about life. I had no idea about recovery. I had no idea what all this stuff was that people were trying to tell me, the 12 steps and, all this stuff. But it was the best, most fertile learning ground that I ever could have been thrown into, because back then they basically said, shut up and listen, and that was that. And which I did, because I wanted to have a life where, I saw people content, and I saw people happy, and I saw people successful who had been where I was. And I was like, well, how does that happen? And they're like, okay, take risks, do these things, do the hard stuff, don't stop, don't quit, and just keep going. I'm like, okay. And I listened. I was young enough and inexperienced enough in this whole life thing where I kind of knew that I didn't know a damn thing. And that worked really well for me, because I just did what people told me to do, and it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Well, and that's like one of the biggest hurdles, right? Like if we feel like we already know it all already, learning has ceased. Like you're done. And so for me, I love finding competitors, finding other people. Like, what are you doing? Like I literally have no ego about it, because I know with technology, innovation, life, you can constantly be improving. And at the point where you don't think there's anything left to improve, it's the law of the universe. Nothing stays the same. So you quit growing, you're going to start declining. So for me, I'm always, and besides just my physical attribute, work-wise, business-wise, personal development-wise, what more can I learn? What more can I do? What more can I employ? What more can I try? Like being willing to know that we don't know it all. In fact, we don't really know much. And at the same time, there's no original thought. So we kind of do know it all, but it's like, it's part of the journey of learning that I just love. I think it's just such a great part of the process. And I believe people who've overcome addiction, they share in that same trait. They didn't just throw out the drug, do none of the work, but now I'm just sober person. They're like doing the work and creating the new them and us.
Yeah. And I had to just get to the point where I was, I don't want to say humbled in a bad way, but humbled in a way to where I was open to listening and open to learning. And there's you reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, which is one of the Stoics, Epictetus, who said, what did he say? I just had it in my head. It is impossible for someone to learn what they think they already know. And I just think that is such a beautiful, beautiful quote. So Angie, I know we were going to go into your story, but like I said, we're just going to wrap and see what happens. And here we are. But I'd love it. And especially for people who are maybe, younger in sobriety or or
Sure.
need these stories to relate to, or to garner some inspiration from, that sort of thing. If you wouldn't mind sharing your story with us, and what's brought you to where you are, I think that would be really helpful for our listeners.
Yeah. So I started, like we talked about in the bio, started drinking and using at a really young age. I grew up in the era of latchkey kids, which meant we were responsible for getting ourselves to school sometimes, home sometimes, making dinner sometimes. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have beepers. It's like the sun went down. We knew it was time to go home. Now it's time for dinner. It was an age of total independence. And for myself, I was growing up in low-income housing with a lot of kids and moms similar to me, moms working all the time and sidetracked and busy, us left to our own devices. And so started drinking, smoking weed at 11 years old, which, when I told the story initially, I was like, yeah, that's pretty young. But then when I had kids of my own, I was like, oh my God, this is really young. Like, this isn't just
Mhm.
kind of young. This is like brains not developed. Like, holy crap. No wonder I went down the path I did at that age.
Yeah.
And I was also influenced kind of heavily by, I had an aunt and uncle that were just about 10 years older than me. And they looked like the cool kids that had it all figured out and the fun. And I wanted to be a part of that. And so that became my life. And I did end up in rehab at 16. Kind of got my stuff together just in time to graduate from high school. And then by the time I was 20, so like a year and a half of being an adult, I had gotten myself in enough trouble that I was now facing 10 years in prison. And when I first got a public defender, they're like, look, Angie, we're going to say you have a drug problem. The judge is going to respond to this because not that you're not responsible for your own actions, but there is understanding and empathy, especially for somebody your age that may have a problem that led them down this bad path. And at first I was like, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I was like totally in denial, and I was probably on methamphetamines at the time. I don't have a problem. And they're like, yeah, no, we're just going to say you have a problem. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I can get on board with that. We're just going to say I have a problem so I can get out of trouble. And in my mind at the time, I'm thinking, great, I'll get myself out of trouble. I'll just go back to whatever I've been doing, which obviously wasn't working, but there was still a lot of denial there, even facing what I was facing. And fortunately for me, and I've done some research on this since that point in time, but 30 years ago, getting drug diversion in lieu of prison was not a thing. It wasn't a common thing. It wasn't a popular thing. And in Reno, I was one of the first that was actually offered this by the judge. And he said, look, you're going to do a year in a rehab, and then you're going to be on probation for 3 years. You have restitution to pay of $15,000, which is why I was in trouble. I had wrecked a car that wasn't mine, so I was in a bit of trouble, and great. But then I'm like, how do you find a rehab that's going to accept you for a year? That's a long time. I don't have a lot of money, or I have no money. I mean, I had nothing. And I did find a rehab that my best friend had gone through. And she'd kind of gotten herself on good terms. And I was like, okay, well, she could do that. I could do that. And so it was in the executive director's house. Went there. He said, fine, you can stay here for a year. You can't afford this. So you're going to start earning your keep immediately. So while you're doing your program, you're going to be helping others do theirs. And I was like most addicts. I'm like very selfish. I didn't want to help others. I wanted, help me. I'm the one with the problem. And there was this like major learning that I had to go through. That part of me getting better was me learning how to help and be there for others as well. And so it was a beautiful process. And I, again, you and I talked about in the beginning of the podcast, like I wouldn't have it any other way. It couldn't have happened any other way than the way it did for me to be where I'm at today. And so after the first year, went back like, yay, I did it. Here's a year. Here's my letter from the executive director, how good I've done. I've moved up in the organization already. I'm kind of his right-hand man. The judge is like, That is absolutely fantastic. So you're done with that part of it, but you're still on probation for 2 more years. I want to see you every 6 months. You're going to be consistently drug tested. You still have this restitution to pay. You still got this stuff hanging over your head. And if you screw any of that up, that 10 years is right there waiting for you. And for myself, even though I'd been doing this a year, very new, I'm still like almost even in denial that I have a problem. Been doing the work, but I also thought I was doing the work so I could hurry up and get out of trouble so I could go back to do whatever it was I was doing before, which was not serving me at all. And again, it's like it was the biggest blessing because I knew I did not have the foundation in order to go through 2 more years, pay the restitution, stay out of trouble. I had no group or friends that weren't addicts. So I was like, I'm just going to stay put and keep doing this. And so that's what I did for the next 2 years. I would go back every 6 months, see that same judge, bring my new letter of how I'm doing and what I'm doing. I've started learning every position within the organization because we were very small. I mean, we were in the executive director's house. It was literally as grassroots as you could get. But I started learning, okay, now I'm going to learn this part of the program. Now I'm going to learn how to be a counselor. Now I'm working in finance. Now I'm learning how all this works. Like it was the coolest thing because I could learn every position within an organization. And for a girl who barely graduated high school, had no college experience, this was a neat opportunity for me to stay in a safe place, keep learning, keep growing, and fulfill what I needed to fulfill in order to get myself out of the trouble I'd gotten myself into. So at the end of the 3 years, I went back in front of the judge, and my public defender, you know, this is probably the third one because you get a different public defender every time, said, and I was feeling very hopeful and excited. I'm like, this is it. This is the end of the 3 years. And my public defender, before we went into the courtroom, said, hey, just so you know, they're going to, the prosecutor is going to recommend another 3 years because although you've done all these things, you've not paid on this restitution over here, this $15,000 that you owed. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, half the time I don't even make, you know, a paycheck, even though minimum wage was always a thing. It kind of wasn't a thing. And I didn't really care as long as I had a roof over my head. I wasn't tripping on it. But now I'm like, oh shit, I was supposed to pay off $15,000 over this 3 years and I've barely made a dent. Shoot. And so I was like, well, okay, you know, what can I do? It is what it is. Let's get in there and do that. And so as I went into the courtroom, the prosecuting attorney came up with their spiel, which is like, we're recommending another 3 years. She hasn't fulfilled her obligations. This is like not what was expected or wanted. And then the judge looked at them and he looked at my defender and said, you know, do you have anything to say? And the defender said what he said. And he looked at me and he said, and then he looked over at the prosecuting defender and he said, I don't know if you realize this, but I so rarely get to see successes in this courtroom. This is the first time I've seen this kind of success. I've been watching this girl over 3 years. She's literally the deputy executive director under this guy. She is now giving her life back to saving people who were once like her. Like, and by the way, that $15,000 restitution, you know, insurance paid for that 3 years ago. So what more could you possibly want out of this girl? What more do you think we could see out of this? This is what the purpose of this is. And I was like, oh shit. He was like kind of giving it to him, which was kind of cool. I didn't even know this could happen. And so then he looked at me and he said, young lady, you have done the work. I have been proudly by your side. I'm so grateful that I got to experience this journey for you. Not only am I wiping away your record or of any of your past, I'm wiping away that restitution. And from this point forward, your life is your own. You did a great job to make up for your past and good luck. And I just broke down crying. Yeah. Like just full on crying. And I thanked him like, Judge, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. And he's like, don't thank me. Thank yourself. You did the work. And obviously he kept those things, you know, those barriers in place that helped me do the work. But I was so incredibly grateful. I mean, it was like a full pardon. Like, when does that happen? I didn't even know that was possible. And so at that point, there I was like, okay, so now I have the option. I can move on with a clean slate and go start my new life at 24 years old, whatever it was back then. And then I said, what else would I rather be doing? This is so fulfilling. I love what I do. I love the position that I've created within this organization. I love helping others that were like me. And so that's where I stayed. That's still where I am. Fast forward 27 years past that, ultimately I learned to do every position. I took over the organization, ran it as that program for 20 years. And then 10 years ago, made the decision to break away and create our own program, which we did. And we created Elevate. And that's what I'm doing 10 years from now is, we've created our own modality, our own program. We've tracked the results. We have amazing success. And here I am. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, especially at this point, what else would I do the rest of my life? I'm living the dream of helping others and providing that so others can help others as well.
So cool, Angie, and so inspirational. I'm sure it's not the first time you heard those words, and I'm just, it's so sincere. It just hits me because I love to see people be successful in sobriety and recovery and life, and it's just such a wonderful thing to hear that story because early on you were about giving back. You were about, who can I help? And that's just so inspirational. I'm almost speechless in terms of I've said many times about my life that it's 1,000 times better than I ever would have imagined it being.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you can say the same thing.
More than I could ever imagine. Like in my wildest dreams, I couldn't have imagined it being what it is. Because you're only exposed to what you're exposed to. Like, growing up, my mom, when I told her about my podcast, she's like, oh, I'm not surprised. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not surprised? She's like, you wanted to be a movie star when you were a kid. Like that was your thing. You wanted to be a mom and a movie star. And I was like, I wanted to be a movie star. Like I was surprised. That's one of those like childhood, like dreams I never thought would, happen. But then I have sort of created that in this weird way, 30 years later with the podcast where it's kind of like, that to some degree, but in a much better than I ever could have imagined way, where I get to connect with people like you, where we get to help people just by having amazing conversations and giving hope and hopefully tools and takeaways where we can help others do this for themselves as well.
Yeah, and I'm such a believer in the stories, and the stories were what kept me coming around, and the stories, not just of relating to the drink and the drugs, but the stories of recovery where it felt like, wow, I want to be like that. I want to do that. I want to, I want to achieve things that I can't even imagine. There's certain things I wanted to do and wanted to achieve, and it's like, those things happened and then more. And it's like, it's just, it's such a cool thing. So from a recovery perspective, I know I had my idea of recovery when I was first starting out in this realm. And like you said, if we're not going forward, we're going backward. There is no such thing as stagnation. I believe that wholeheartedly with everything in me. So how has the idea of recovery changed for you? And just, maybe some people that are listening that are early on that can think about what can I look forward to? What can be different for me? How has recovery changed for someone who's been doing this for 30 years?
I would say for me, one of the big takeaways is it's a lifelong journey. And when you look at it like that, not like, oh, good, I'm fixed. But you look at it as a constant tool for more and more growth, discovery, self-discovery, because, everything changes and circumstances change, life changes. You're going to be confronted with a lot. So, you learn how to navigate through that as far as like, what's a good outlet for me? For me in these last 12 years, CrossFit's been a big outlet for me. Meditation, being close to God or source has been really big for me. And I think can be like a big, I don't want to say turn off, but I know, like, for example, with AA and NA, and this is not a bash, but there's certain precepts that you have to get on board with in order to subscribe to the modality. And a lot of people don't necessarily agree with those things. So then they don't think there's other ways that they can actually gain sobriety or recovery or that sort of thing. So, we're fortunate to live in a world where there's so many different ways. There is no one size fits all. There's no everybody must go in this box. There's so many different ways that you can look out there and find there is other modalities that might feed your soul more than others. For people that come to me that have failed elsewhere, they like feeling empowered, not powerless. They like having a higher power that's of their own choosing, but not saying it's God or it's Jesus Christ. Again, I'm all for those things. I think they're all the same. It's just how we say it, but it can, for somebody who's wanting to get sober, be something that prevents them from doing that because they don't want to get on board with that. I don't necessarily think, once an addict, you're always an addict, and you have to call yourself an addict every day of your life for the rest of your life. So there's just certain things that we can agree to, and certain things that resonate with us. And, for some people it's Buddhism. Some people it's working out. Some people like we talked about, creating new hobbies or finding new things. I've seen people go into speaking where they'll join like those events where you have to sort of, do comedy on the fly, like whatever you can do to sort of grow and change and reinvent yourself in this new version of you. And it is possible. Like, look at me. I was a little poor girl from Reno, grew up with a single mom using at 11. Like I got to this place by consistently moving forward, keep taking that step forward, keep always pushing through, no matter how hard things seem, no how impossible they seem, no matter how hard they are. You just got to keep pushing forward one step at a time and not give up. That would be my biggest advice, is just don't give up. Just keep moving forward.
100%. Yeah, 100% agree, Angie. I'm such a fan of, and I was into the 12 steps when I was younger, and I haven't been to a meeting in decades, but several things that you said that I 100% agree with. I believe in being empowered, although I do believe there's a component of surrender, which is really helpful for us as like, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing. Somebody show me, somebody tell me. And I think that's a really cool thing. But I also believe, and I don't believe, I'm not an addict. I haven't done this crap in 40 some years. You know what I mean? Like I'm just not. Like if I was, I'd be doing it.
Yeah. Right.
And not to say that I haven't jumped into other things. I can be addicted to work. I can be addicted to, I was addicted to nicotine. I was, chewing, smoking, whatever, just, anything I could be addicted to. People can be addicted to gambling and sex and change
retail
addiction.
therapy. Yep.
What's that?
Retail therapy, like shopping.
Retail
that was
therapy,
a big one for me. Yeah.
Amazon.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many things, but I think the point is, and you'd said this 3-word phrase that I loved, which is feed your soul. And I believe that we heal in our bodies, and we have to heal in our minds and our hearts and in our souls, and in sort of a holistic approach to healing and to recovery. And like you said, it's a lifelong thing. When I got involved, I started looking into Buddhism and Taoism, Confucianism, and all this sort of stuff. And I read all those things now. I'm about to read a book on Celtic mythology. It's like, I just love the exploration of life. And I love to, and I think this is important for people coming in, or maybe they're, they've been sober for a while and they haven't, sort of hit their stride yet, but keep the doors open from an exploration perspective. Don't get stuck on one thing or one modality or one way. There's many, many ways, to go back to your phrase, to feed your soul. And I feel like that's really what it boils down to, if we're feeding our soul, we're moving in the right direction, and we're doing the right things, and we're listening, and we're listening to that little voice. Anyway, so many beautiful things, Angie. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing all that.
Well, and I love that because you laid it out. And I mean, I know that's how I've laid out Elevate, but it's also how I lead my life is you have to look at it in several components. It's like, it's our physical body. Are we feeding it? Are we taking care of it? Are we doing the right things by it so that we feel better as a person? So that if we're having an emotional reaction to something, we know it's not because of the body, because I'm doing what I should be doing here, but there's an emotional reaction. And I love how you touched on earlier, like learning how to experience those emotions and feeling those emotions, because we're being bombarded by thousands of commercials a day that are saying, if you don't like the way you feel, take something for it, take something for it, take something. We're like teaching people to
Kills me.
numb out, to not experience emotions, which are a healthy indicator of what's going on with our life. And I'm not saying, we fly off the handle and do stupid shit, but at the same time, we should be aware if I'm having a feeling about it, that's okay. Have a
Yeah.
feeling about it. Go through it. Give it yourself some grace. Be pissed, be sad, be grief, and then keep going. Like, so we have to look at it as physical, mental, and spiritual, at least for myself and the majority of people that I help. Is like, if we can have all those in alignment, then we're in control of feeding our soul each and every day in those special ways, as long as we're making us the important part, and not us as in the selfish, me first, but as part of the equation, which a lot of us, when we get into the field of helping others, we tend to, I know for myself, I'd much rather help other people, or I used to, as opposed to look after myself. That was part of my worth, is how much I could give to everybody else. And so like in the last few years, I've really started going, well, I need to be part of that equation too. How can I be my best version of myself so I could best be there for everybody else by looking at those three different areas?
Isn't that so cool that, you've been doing this for a long, long time, and there's always something else to do, and something else to learn, and something
Yeah.
else to, maybe it's achieve, maybe it's not achieve, maybe it's just learn, maybe it's, whatever it is, experience, more things to experience. And there is no shortage of new things. And you've done a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of stuff, but I feel like I've just taken like a small bite of the apple. There's a huge amount of the apple still to go. And I'm just going to keep chomping that sucker down until they're kicking dirt on me, or whatever they decide to do to me.
Yeah.
But that's how I live my life. And I think it's important for people to understand that you can be excited about life every single freaking day. You
Yeah.
really can. And that's just such a powerful place to be compared to where we used to be.
Yeah. And just completely empowered, like I choose to read that book. I'm like you, I'm really getting into the Toltec wisdom, which is like the Four Agreements and love and all that. It's great books. And so, being able to give yourself the time to do the work physically, mentally, spiritually every day, there's such power in that. And that's where we truly are empowered. And why would we want to stop doing that? I know I certainly don't, because I found how rewarding it is. And I certainly hope that other people can see that as well, like how we really appreciate those things. They're not things we have to do. They're things we want to do because we get things out of doing them, which is all just helping ourselves so we can help others.
Absolutely. There's one of the big things I pulled out of the 12 steps, and it wasn't even the 12 steps. It was just on the coins where it said, to thine own self be true.
Mm.
And I 100% believe in that. And people look at that, and I think I looked at that as though that might be selfish. When I first saw that, I'm like, well, what about other people? But the entire quote, which is from Shakespeare, Hamlet, is, and this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. which is a really cool quote, because if I'm being true to myself, I'm doing the right things for other people as well. And I think that's something that we can miss sometimes when we talk about these things is, I look at myself as a product that I'm putting out on the street every day, and I'm putting me out there, and I'm interacting with people, whether it's my family or business people or whatever it is. And am I improving the lives of others by what I'm putting out there? Or am I detracting? Am I being a pain in the ass or a whiner, or, like all
Yeah.
those things that sometimes we could be. Am I fortifying myself? Am I making myself better for what I'm putting out there in the world? And that's really my charge today is to just keep improving me, so that I'm not so caught up in myself that I can't give a smile to a cashier or somebody at the bank or somebody walking down the sidewalk. All of those sorts of things I think are crucial.
All of those things. And I think it's because you are leading with authenticity. That is what people respond to. Like, it's not, I look like everyone, sound like everyone. I'm in this box. Isn't that great? Now people like me. It's like, no, be authentically yourself, whatever that looks like. Not caring what other people think or feel, that's them, that's their emotions. Obviously, you don't do something that's completely out PR, but at the same time, the more we are able to be authentically ourselves, the more people resonate with that. I mean, it's why I have purple hair. It's why I still do all the things I do at my quote unquote age, where, I should be wearing mom jeans and, driving the minivan and all that. That's just not me.
Yeah.
And if I tried to be that person, it would be unauthentic. Not saying there's anything wrong with it. That's just not me. So the more that we can lean into just and accepting us for who we are and just letting that shine, that's going to get us people in our environment. Or like you said, when we smile at somebody, it's real, it's not fake. And they smile because you see them and they see you. And it's like this nice connection and exchange that you can have people when you're truly in your authentic self, which is where you're at and why so many people respond to you.
It brought to me what you said earlier about, you mentioned meditation. And I feel like, when I grew up with a Lutheran education. Now I've been a recovering Lutheran for a long time now. And I don't subscribe to religion. I just don't. That's me. I believe there's, the more I limit whatever that universe or source or God or whatever you want to call it is, the more I define it, the more I limit it. So I don't define it. I just allow it to be. And you mentioned meditation. And one of the ways that I connect with whatever that is by quieting myself. And I wasn't able to really do that. When I first, I was scared to death. See, people said meditation, 11 step and the 12 steps through prayer and meditation. I'm like, holy crap, what are they talking about? I don't think you're allowed to do this in the Lutheran, realm. And come to find out, it's been one of the most beautiful, life-changing things for me, because I think the nature of people who have that sort of addictive tendency is the mind's just whipping, and it's just going, and it's just churning, and it's just cranking. And my mind can do that. And so I take time every day in the morning to just start with a quiet mind. And it's amazing how that reverberates right through life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I used to be that person that there was noise around me 24/7. That's how I quieted my mind. The TV was on, the kids were talking, the phone, like that was that's where I found strength. But once my kids were sort of grown, and then I'm like in a house by myself, I'm like, it's real quiet around here. And first instinct is to fill that gap. But then I'm like, let's actually lean into it and see what's there. I've never done this. And now, I used to be I'd stay up late, I'd sleep in, alarm 5 times, holy shit, run, get your day. I don't set any alarm. I go to bed at like 9. I just wake up naturally at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning. I'm like, who am I? But I love those hours before the rest of the world is going, where I have that quiet, where I have that space, where I can meditate, where I can be with myself, be with God, be with source, set the tone for my day in such a different way than the way I used to set it. And I find so much solace in it. Like there's nights where I can't wait to go to sleep so I can wake up the next morning to do that, which is crazy for me. I'm like, who am I? Like, this is freaking weird, but it's just the new iteration of who I am and where I'm at. And I'm just enjoying the heck out of it. This is what's serving me right now.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I'm basically the same. It's somewhere between 9 and 9:30. I'm out, and somewhere between 4 and 5. Generally, I'm up and cranking again. And I shouldn't say I'm not cranking until probably 6:30.
Yeah, my cranking comes a little later, maybe about
meditate,
8:30.
read,
Like I went and walked this morning in the forest with the dogs at mindfulness,
oh,
but that
that's
was at
awesome.
8, and that felt early.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that because I think there's so much to be said for just finding that quiet and finding that place where it's, in here isn't a battleground, in here isn't a place where we're fighting and battling and that sort of stuff. And people aren't living rent free up here. And the 4,000 things I have to do aren't churning and all that sort of stuff. It's actually, it's a cool place to be. So
Yeah.
Angie, I am so tickled that we've had the chance to connect. And thank you so much. How do can you tell us a little bit more about Elevate, about anywhere that, we can find you or your work, or
Oh.
I know people would love to reach out.
Absolutely. So if you want to just connect with me, it's Angie Going Rogue on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, or Angie Manson. You can find me there. And if you need help or you want information about Elevate, which is a residential treatment program, we have a couple locations here in Northern California. We accept people from all over the United States. In fact, a lot of people, I mean, let's be honest, if you're out in Michigan and it's like, snow up to your head right now, coming to California to rehab is not a bad thing. We've got the forest, the ocean, we got all the things. But besides that, it's an amazing, safe place to take this journey that I've been on, that Daryl's been on, there, where we can help people through their hardest times in the most supportive type environment. And like I said, our success rate is bar none. We have fitness, we have health, we have the copyrighted curriculum where we can help you navigate through the traumas that, we're at underlying addiction. It's always a trauma. We're there to help you identify those traumas, triggers, all that kind of stuff, and send you back into the world, the new, improved, whatever version of yourself you need and want to be, with the tools that you need to be successful and strive and thrive and all the things. So elevaterehab.org, that would be your best place for that. 24-hour counseling as well. So for example, it's night, it's whenever, doesn't matter. We have the chat bot, we have 24-hour help. And if we're not the ones that can help you, which, sometimes that is the case, we will help find you the place that can help you with where you're at and what you're able to do.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, that's really wonderful. I'll have all this information in the show notes as well, so people can connect. And Angie, thank you so much. It's such an inspirational story, and up to the getting sober part, and then the recovery part is just, blast off in the rocket, which I believe everybody can do. I truly believe that anybody who's in recovery can just go. All the tools are there, and something that actually, after I got sober, my mom didn't say this to me before I got sober, but after I got sober, she said, Daryl, what you don't have, you don't need. And I thought, I don't know about that, but I do believe that about everybody in sobriety and everybody in recovery. You have what you need, just move forward.
Just move forward. I love that. And connect. It's about community. It's not a solo mission. You don't have to go it alone. Connect with other people that are like you or have similar thoughts, modalities. There's so many groups. I mean, that is the one blessing that happened from the pandemic. There was a few, but it's the ability to connect with people anywhere and anytime that are like you, that have similar beliefs and methodologies, that can be a support group. Zoom and Facebook groups, everything has changed so much that you can really have access to things that we never had access before without uprooting your life or doing the different things.
I don't know how many times I had to stop at a payphone to call my sponsor when I was first
Oh, good
coming
old
in.
payphones, beepers. Like, yeah, no, things are
Yeah.
way different now. It's like, oh, here I am. Yeah.
Well, the cool thing is, and like you said, it's there's help everywhere, and you
Yeah,
can go online and find help. You can put it into your phone and find help and call someone, and all those things that are available now. It's just incredible how much accessibility there is, and that's just a wonderful thing. I think just that fact saves numerous lives.
absolutely. Yeah. And if you're struggling and you just want to reach out and talk to someone, I'm always available. So
As
feel
am
free
I.
to do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Angie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Wonderful connecting again and talking, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I'd like to take just a minute and make you aware of my books. My first book, When I Stopped Fighting, The Unexpected Joy of Getting My Head Out of My Ass, is best described by a recent review. If you're looking for a book that will make you feel like you can tackle anything, this is it. My second book, When You Stop Fighting, The Road You're On Is Your Own Ass Fault, was recently reviewed by someone saying, refreshingly free from self help jargon, which I love. That was my intent. I feel like these books are doing a lot of good out there and helping a lot of people. So if you get a chance to check them out, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.